Last summer, I stood in my garden looking at 4 tomato plants, and I almost could not believe what I was seeing. Those plants were loaded. I had tomatoes on the counter, tomatoes in baskets, tomatoes going to neighbors, and still more ripening on the vine. It felt like the kind of harvest you hope for, but do not always get. And here is what bothered me. The year before, in the exact same bed, with the same kind of tomatoes, I had a mess. Weak plants, split fruit, tomatoes with black, ugly bottoms. I blamed the weather first, then I blamed the soil, then I blamed the seeds. But the truth was much simpler than that. I was watering them the wrong way. And I think a lot of gardeners are making the same mistake without knowing it. It is not always about underwatering. It is not always about overwatering either. The real problem is giving tomatoes a small little drink every day and thinking you are helping. It feels caring. It feels safe. But below the soil, you may be teaching the roots to stay shallow, and shallow roots make weak plants. Once that starts, the trouble shows up fast. For a long time, I watered tomatoes the way I saw everybody else do it. After dinner, I would head outside with the hose, give each plant a good splash around the base, wet the top of the soil, and walk away feeling like I had done my job. The leaves looked fine. The soil looked dark. So I thought, good, they have water. But every summer, the same problems came back. Around July, the bottom leaves started turning yellow. Some tomatoes cracked right before I was ready to pick them. A few had that dark sunken spot on the bottom that makes your heart drop when you see it. The plants looked alive, but tired. They were flowering, but not really pushing like they should. So I kept chasing the wrong fixes. I added fertilizer. I looked for calcium. I checked for bugs. I thought maybe I had bought the wrong variety. But the problem was not really what I was adding. It was how I was watering. I was keeping the top of the soil just wet enough to fool myself. But deeper down, the plant was not building strength. That is when it finally clicked for me. Tomatoes do not need to be babied on the surface. They need water that pulls their roots down deep. A tomato plant is not supposed to live like a little plant in a kitchen window. It is built to reach down. When the soil is watered the right way, those roots start pushing deeper, looking for moisture below the surface. And that is what makes the whole plant tougher. Deep roots help the plant handle hot afternoons. They help it get through dry spells. They help it keep feeding fruit when the plant is heavy and full. But when you give it a small drink every day, the water stays near the top. So the plant learns a bad habit. It thinks, water is right here. I do not need to go deeper. At first, that may not look like a problem. The leaves may still look green. The plant may still grow. But once real summer heat shows up, shallow roots struggle fast. The topsoil dries out quickly. It gets hot. One day it is wet. The next day it is dusty. The plant starts depending on you for every little drink. It cannot reach the steady moisture underneath. And when roots stay shallow, the plant has a harder time moving water and nutrients into the fruit. That is why a tomato can look healthy one week, then suddenly start yellowing, wilting, cracking fruit, and falling apart. Cracked tomatoes and blossom end rot are two problems that can make any gardener feel defeated. You wait all that time. You see the fruit getting big. Then, right before harvest, it splits open, or you turn it over and see that dark, sunken spot on the bottom. It is frustrating, and the first thought is usually, something must be missing in my soil. Sometimes that can be true, but a lot of the time, the bigger issue is not missing nutrients. It is uneven water. When a tomato plant gets too dry, the fruit slows down. Then, if the plant suddenly gets a big drink, the fruit pulls in water fast. The inside swells quickly, but the skin cannot stretch fast enough, so it cracks. Blossom end rot can happen in a similar way. People often call it a calcium problem, but many gardens already have calcium in the soil. The plant just cannot move it into the fruit when the moisture keeps swinging back and forth. Dry, wet, dry, wet. That kind of rhythm stresses the plant, so the answer is not just dumping on more water. That can make things worse. The real answer is steady moisture, down where the roots need it. Once you get that, you stop reacting every time the surface looks dry. You start watering for the roots, not for your own peace of mind. The first thing I had to learn was this: stop guessing. Do not water just because the top of the soil looks dry. That top layer can fool you. On a hot day, the sun can dry the first inch fast, while the soil underneath still has plenty of moisture. So instead of trusting what you see, check what the roots are actually feeling. Push your finger into the soil a couple of inches away from the tomato stem. Go down as far as you can, around 3 or 4 inches. If the soil feels cool and a little damp, like a sponge that has been squeezed out, leave it alone. The plant is fine. If it feels dry, loose, and crumbly all the way down, then it is time to water. And if it feels heavy, sticky, or soggy, do not add more. That plant already has enough. This little test sounds simple, but it changes everything. It keeps you from watering out of worry. A schedule can remind you to go check the garden, sure. But the soil should be the one making the decision. When your tomato really does need water, give it a real drink. That was the big shift for me. Not a quick splash every evening. Not a little spray just to make the surface look dark. I mean a slow, deep soak right at the base of the plant. For a mature tomato in warm summer weather, I like to think in the range of 1 to 2 gallons per plant every 3 to 5 days. Your garden may need a little more or less. Clay soil holds water longer. Sandy soil dries out faster. Containers dry faster too. But the idea stays the same. Water less often, but water deeper and slower. Put the water on the soil, not on the leaves. Let it sink down instead of running across the bed. A gentle trickle is better than blasting the plant with a hose. If you use a regular hose, turn it low and let the water soak in. If you have a drip line or soaker hose, that is even better. The whole point is to send moisture down where you want the roots to grow. Then, as the top dries out later, the roots start chasing that deeper moisture. Over time, you are not just watering a tomato plant. You are training it to become stronger. You are helping it grow deeper roots, handle heat better, and stop falling apart every time summer gets rough. If you can, water your tomatoes in the morning. That is the time that has worked best for me. Somewhere between 6 and 9 is usually ideal. The plant gets a good drink before the day turns hot. The soil has time to take in the water. And if a little splash hits the leaves, they still have plenty of daylight and airflow to dry out. That matters more than people think. Tomato leaves do not like sitting wet for hours. When they stay damp, disease can move in fast. Early blight, leaf spot, and those ugly leaf problems usually show up when moisture keeps hanging around. That is why spraying the whole plant from above can cause trouble. It feels quick. It looks like you are refreshing the plant. But tomatoes do not need a shower. They need water down in the soil. So I keep this rule simple. Water the dirt, not the plant. Keep the leaves dry when you can. Keep the fruit dry too. The roots are the part doing the drinking, so that is where the water should go. Once your tomato plants are settled in and the soil has warmed up, mulch is one of those small things that makes a big difference. I used to skip it because it seemed optional. Then I tried growing tomatoes with mulch and without it, and the difference was obvious. A good layer of mulch keeps the soil from drying out so fast. It helps the roots stay cooler when the sun is beating down. It keeps weeds from stealing water, and over time, as it breaks down, it feeds the soil a little too. You do not need anything fancy. Straw works, shredded leaves work, dried grass clippings can work if they have not been treated with chemicals. Lay it down about 2 to 3 inches thick around the root zone. Just do not pile it tight against the main stem. Leave a little space there. Wet mulch pressed against the stem can cause rot, and you do not want that. Think of mulch like a blanket over the soil, not a wet scarf wrapped around the plant. In hot weather, this can be the difference between watering all the time and watering with control. It helps the plant stay steady, and steady is what tomatoes love. Tomatoes do not need the exact same watering routine from the day you plant them to the day you pick the last fruit. That was something I had to learn the hard way. A young tomato plant has small roots. It cannot reach deep moisture yet. So in the first few weeks after transplanting, you may need to check it more often. Maybe every 2 or 3 days, depending on the weather. But even then, do not just sprinkle the top. Give it enough water to start teaching those roots to move down. As the plant gets bigger, you can slowly stretch the time between waterings. By the middle of summer, when the plant is tall, full, and carrying fruit, a deep soak every 3 to 5 days often works much better than little drinks every day. If you get several days over 90 degrees, check more often, but do not panic and go back to daily sips unless the soil is truly dry. And after a heavy rain, skip the hose. Do not water just because it is your usual day. Check the soil first. Late in the season, when the tomatoes are ripening, you can sometimes ease back a little to help the flavor get richer. Just keep it steady. Do not let the plant go bone dry, then flood it. That swing is where trouble starts. A tomato plant will tell you a lot if you take a minute and really look at it. I do not mean rushing past it with the hose. I mean looking at it in the morning, before the heat starts pushing everything down. A healthy tomato plant should look lifted and firm early in the day. The leaves should have some life in them. Now, if the plant droops a little in the middle of a hot afternoon, do not panic right away. That can be normal, especially when the temperature is high. Sometimes the plant is just protecting itself from the heat. If it stands back up by evening, it is usually fine. But if you walk out early in the morning and the leaves are already limp, that is different. That usually means the plant ran out of moisture overnight. Then it is time to check the soil and water deeply if it is dry. Yellow leaves near the bottom can have a few causes, but if the soil is always wet, you may be overdoing it. Curled leaves can also mean heat stress or uneven watering. So do not guess. Do not rush to fix everything at once. Look at the plant, then check the soil. The plant gives you the warning. The soil tells you the truth. There are a few watering habits that hurt tomato plants without looking harmful at first. I know, because I used to do all of them. The first one is the quick evening sprinkle. You come home, grab the hose, splash each plant a little, and feel like you helped. But that kind of watering keeps the roots near the surface. Then the soil dries out fast, and the plant goes through that wet, dry stress over and over again. The better way is to water deeply, but not every day. The second mistake is spraying the whole plant from above. It may look refreshing, but wet leaves are where disease gets started. Keep the water down at the soil line. The third mistake is watering just because it is watering day. Maybe you pick Tuesday and Friday. That sounds organized, but tomatoes do not care what day it is. They care about soil moisture, heat, rain, and root depth. Use your schedule as a reminder to check, not as an order to water. The fourth mistake is panic watering. Maybe you forget for a few days, then you flood the plant to make up for it. That sudden swing can crack fruit and stress the plant even more. Just get back to a steady, deep soak. These mistakes do not mean you are bad at gardening. Most of us were just never taught how tomatoes really drink. Here is a simple trick that changed the way I water tomatoes. It does not cost much, and you probably already have what you need. Take an empty 1-gallon plastic jug, like an old milk jug or vinegar jug. Poke 6 to 8 small holes around the lower part of the jug. Do not make the holes too big. You want the water to seep out slowly, not dump out all at once. Then bury the jug next to the tomato plant, about 6 to 8 inches away from the main stem. Leave the top of the jug sticking above the soil so you can fill it easily. Keep the cap off, or leave it loose, so the water can move out without fighting pressure. When the plant needs water, just fill the jug. That water slowly leaks underground and moves right into the deeper root zone. No spraying leaves, no water running across the bed, no wasting half of it to evaporation. For big tomato plants, especially the tall indeterminate types, you can use 2 jugs. For smaller plants, patio tomatoes, or containers, 1 jug may be enough. What I like about this method is how practical it is. You reuse a piece of plastic, you save time, and you stop guessing with the hose. You fill the jug, walk away, and let the soil take in the water slowly. It is a small trick, but over a whole season, small tricks like this can make the plant stronger, steadier, and much easier to care for. So if there is one thing I hope you take from this, it is this: water your tomatoes like the deep-rooted plants they are. Do not treat them like tiny seedlings all season long. Those little daily sips may feel helpful, but they can keep the plant weak and dependent. Check the soil below the surface before you water. Give the plant a slow, deep drink when it actually needs it. Keep the water at the base. Keep the leaves dry. Use mulch to hold moisture steady. And pay attention to how the plant looks in the morning, not just when the afternoon heat makes everything droop. If you want to test this without changing your whole garden, try the buried bottle method beside one tomato plant. Then compare it with the others. You might be surprised how much calmer and stronger that plant looks. Better watering is not just about getting bigger tomatoes. It is about fewer cracked fruits, fewer ugly bottoms, healthier leaves, and a harvest you can count on. Thank you for spending your time with Quiet Growth Lab today. If this helped you see your garden a little differently, please like this video, leave a comment about the tomato problem you are dealing with, and subscribe to Quiet Growth Lab for more simple growing lessons that actually work. Until next time, keep growing quietly, one good habit at a time.